Good afternoon, everybody. This is Waffenoct, and I'm bringing to you a new build, my Magicka Necromancer. I like to call it Spectre's Caller. It's set up for the new Flames of Ambition update, and you're going to see the stats, and then I'll roll through the sets and the abilities and everything else that goes into the build. And then later on during the gameplay footage, I'll talk about why I made the choices I did and why I feel like it's a really good tank for this new meta. So starting off, I'll start off with the abilities. First, you get a good glimpse of the stats, like the resistance. I'll explain why I have so much resistance and why I've gone with what I've gone with. Actually, first I'll start with the armor sets. Right off the bat, I am using Vateshran's Lightning Staff with the Sharpened trait. I prefer double damage poison. I have one Skoria. I am using Spectre's Eye. That is the new set for me, the new meta set, if you will. 3 with 2 of them jewelry, 1 body, and then the back bar being the Restoration Staff where I get my 4 and 5. With the defending trait, using Glyph of Weakening on it. My other set is Mark of the Pariah, 5 of them all body, and I'm using Malacath's Band. It's using 4 Impenetrable traits with 3 Nirnhoned trait, buffing up that resistance, using all health enchantments. The jewelry is 2 protective traits and 1 infused trait. All 3 are spell damage glyphs. Real quick, the race is Dunmer, the food is smoked bear haunch, the Mundus is Atronach, and all attributes are in Magicka. I'm going to let the video catch up a little bit, but I think Spectre's Eye is a fabulous set. You get to back bar it with the mythics. It works wonderfully. One of the best buffs you're going to be able to get in today's meta too. So with the abilities, on the front lightning staff bar, I have Degeneration, Agony Totem, Elemental Drain, Intensive Mender, Stalking Blastbones, with the ultimate Animate Blastbones. On the back Restoration staff bar, I have Necrotic Potency. The video will catch up in just a second. Summoner's Armor, Rapid Regeneration, Resistant Flesh, Race Against Time, and the ultimate is Ravenous Goliath. I like my Animate Blastbones as the burst damage, maybe one-on-one kind of ultimate to kill people, more the weaker people, and I prefer using Ravenous Goliath as my get out of jail free card. Get outnumbered, get out of position, hit that, got 13 seconds to try and kill people, and then use the last 7 seconds to run away. Here's some gameplay footage. I'm going to start off with showing you guys using the Reanimate ultimate to get kills in Battlegrounds, and then just more generalized gameplay after that. So to make some of the explanation of some of the choices I've made, I am going with a ton of resistance in this meta because I feel like everybody's damage is really high. I have to try and go for one single source of mitigation, and that single source for me is going to be the resistance levels rather than block, and with the changes to Mistform, I can't rely on that either. I understand that a lot of players have a lot of penetration. That is why I have gone for such a high amount of resistance. I am looking at the typical player having anywhere between 12,000 through 16,000 penetration, and that is why I have invested in Nirnhoned traits, in the protective trait, and using Pariah. And on top of all that, with Spectre's Eye, it's a great set. You get to back bar it. Not many defensive sets have a back bar set that goes over to the front bar. It is Major Evasion, one of the strongest buffs in the game right now at 20%. Most abilities like that don't have 100% uptime, and this does give you 100% uptime. And it's very easy to keep that 100% uptime using Race Against Time. Just using your heals and or buffs will keep you constantly protected with like 0 management on your end. Just a really good set. I think you're going to see a lot more Magicka builds use it as their back bar in Battlegrounds after this. Of course, with Cyrodiil being no proc sets, you're not going to see that. You might later on, but that's something that we'll just have to wait and see for. Even with the changes that they have done recently and all of the stuff I invested into defense, my spell damage and my overall damage still went up significantly. So before I was looking around 3,000-ish spell damage. I'm well over 3,000. I think it was like around 3.8. It was shown earlier. That's a huge gain with all the resistance, with all the back set, with everything being essentially invested in survival. And as you can see, I have high tooltips, so it gives this build massive amounts of survivability. In each battleground, I haven't died more than twice, and I would say at least one of each of those 2 deaths per match was because I wasn't paying attention. It was pilot error, not the build, not the theory crafting. Theory crafting is really solid on this one. I don't see how people can get too much more penetration than what I'm expecting them to get already, though. With the Restoration Staff, I could not use the Sword and Board back bar because those tooltips are just way too high to give up. 17,000 tooltip in a no CP environment is just fantastic. And without having to really invest in it, I'm definitely going to keep it. With the video real quick, this guy was a really good one-on-one. He didn't like my proc sets apparently, my whole Vateshran. That's cool. I respect him. It was a pretty good fight. With my Spectre's Eye, there is no way that Leap's ever going to deal damage. Dragon Knights and Templars especially are really, really hurt by this build because they end up never doing any real damage. You got the Spectre's Eye and you got the resistance. And even if they do have penetration, the way mitigation works, it's multiplicative. So the more penetration you are receiving, sure, that goes down. But your other forms of mitigation will go up. Not as much, but it will make a difference because of that multiplicative effect that SOS does with calculations. So it's not as bad of a loss when they're penetrating your armor as one would think. I've noticed the sustain is fine. The stamina, as you can tell, it seems to be topped off just about all the time. I have just the Bear Haunch and the Necromancer passives to get that stamina back, and it's always full. Must be because of the new changes, but I don't need to invest in that. My Magicka seems low, but with tri-pots or any Magicka pot, plus a heavy attack or your elemental drain, I have found no real issue sustaining. Yeah, it's low a lot of the time. I noticed that, but it doesn't actually matter because it doesn't really hurt me. I never really notice it. I had to drop Mist Form, which means why be a vampire? Not worth it to me. Not with increasing the cost. I don't like the undeath passive. Not good enough for me in order to keep it, especially at that level 3. Huge sustain loss, so I just got rid of it. I'm a huge fan of Agony Totem. I know you don't see it a lot. It's more of a stationary thing, which is perfect for this kind of build where you want to keep a stationary area where you can keep your corpses near you when you want to use your Reanimate Blastbones. For that reason, plus the minor protection. Again, I'm not getting full 5% from it, but I get a decent chunk, so that all adds up. Off the top of my head, I think the build does near 70% overall mitigation, essentially 100% of the time. Sure, there's some differences here and there with the mitigation amount and whatnot, but if you general rule of thumb is at least 60% is just going on the wayside, and that's as good as better than blocking with a non-sword and board. I definitely use Reanimate Blastbones as the single target, blow them up ultimate. Goliath, a great move with Goliath as well. I'm sure anyone who's been a Necromancer already knows this, though. Is grabbing a relic and then hitting Goliath form. You're not going to be able to be stopped. They're not going to be able to kill you. With Race Against Time, with the stamina, there's just no way you're going down. You will score with it. As long as you get that relic first, it's great. So that was basically what I noticed with the changes for this build. However, with other builds, I have noticed everybody seems to be a glass cannon. Most people have a little tank. at best. Like, I feel like I'm the only true tank out there. I only feel like I'm the only true tank that is sitting there in groups of people, not dying. Like you can see right there, get nailed by a meteor, get nailed by a whole bunch of beams, and I'm just plowing through it, powering up. I've also noticed with the changes with heavy armor, I am not experiencing any drawbacks really. I have too light, too heavy. Forgot to mention that earlier. Too light, too heavy really offsets the heavy loss. And you say like you're losing, say 3%, gain 3% damage on like spell, but then you gain the overall resistance from heavy, and then you gain like when you're CC immune, you gain 5% more damage mitigation. So no matter what, really, you're gaining in mitigation rather than losing anything. As far as cost of sprinting, speed of sprinting, and roll dodge cost, I've experienced no loss. As you can see, my stamina bar is almost always full. I don't really notice being too slow, especially with the 2 light armor. So there is really, to me, no downside for being heavy. Still hitting people really hard. Still have a decent amount of penetration with the way I've it set up with Elemental Breach and Sharpened. And then with the light armor passive, that does add a nice amount of penetration no matter who you are. So all that added together, I'm still dealing tons of damage and able to survive just about everything. Like I said, I have died a few times. That's because I made a mistake, not because the build didn't do well. Got some triple kills, got some double kills. Not entirely sure how I got one of these double kills. I've watched the video a few times. You probably see it coming up. You see one person blow up, and there was 2 kills. My only thought maybe was there like an NB near his ally that was cloaked or something, and it just happened to kill him right then and there. I don't know. There was some distant reanimate kills that you have to pay attention to in the video. But, you know, that's just how it goes. You can't control where those Blastbones go, it seems. I wish the heavy attack would direct them one heavy attack and all the Blastbones go to the same target would be great. But that's not how it works. They just go wherever they want to go. They don't attack pets, I've noticed, though, which seems to be fantastic. I was afraid when I did one that they'd all jump on like a Matriarch or an Engine Guardian, and that just doesn't seem to happen. So it's got a little bit more AI than that. Again, I don't have a lot of kills in my builds, or at least on this build. For as squishy as some of them are, they are able to bounce back rather well. So that means I'm getting a lot of assists without an execute, which I am very tempted to try and get the Wrath or Wild Impulse. Try to get the Wild Impulse staff and then maybe change Elemental Drain into Impulse and then add another kind of spammable damage source. Get that dot from Wild, but then you would lose the Breach, which maybe I could find somewhere else, or maybe I just live with that because of how squishy everybody is anyway. That was one idea to do with the build. Big fan of Intensive Mender. It's got a massive tooltip. I have actually seen a few builds that still run Mistform, and the one that I actually was able to catch up with, whatever, just ended up dying after a bit. I don't like it without being able to get your stamina at least back, and without the health regen, it doesn't really matter either. The meta seems to be a really low time to kill with really high tooltips. That's why I didn't go with health regeneration either, is because I would rather gain that health from a spell rather than a every 2 second tick. That probably won't make a long run difference at all. Can't really live long enough to take full advantage of health regeneration, especially without Mistform. That was what made the health regeneration so attractive, was popping into Mistform and being invincible. So instead of being able to rely on that, you got to go on this. I also noticed there's not nearly as many procs, mainly because, you know, everybody wants to blow somebody up with cool stats. Better players do seem to be able to avoid a lot of these procs as well. Like Zan, I'm able to outrun it with Race Against Time and come back against your opponent. People are able to cloak. There's a ton of Nightblades. So those kinds of procs have really lost their attractiveness to me in this high MMR, just because they don't work as well. Got them off in the distance right there. Double Blastbones from nowhere. Again, tons of Nightblades, and I would typically be running Potion of Detection, but I am broke. I have very little gold. A lot of my supplies have run really thin. That's also why I have only blue jewelry on this. I would love it for it to at least be purple, but don't got the gold for it anytime soon. I'll be working on the build overall, making it, at least purple with jewelry, and then maybe getting some more golden glyphs on the armor and busting all that up, making it some better stats. I did finally finish Undaunted on it. That was a really nice thing. Wanted to get that before I made the video, which, I did get it here for you guys. I have done Undaunted on plenty of others. I refuse to pay $30 or the equivalent of $30 just to do something I can do in game. That's why it took so long. And I didn't have it set up for PvE, so I didn't do veteran stuff. That took forever. I've noticed a few times the bar swap doesn't work well, and I ended up going into Goliath when I really wanted to hit my Reanimate, and that was not cool, because there would have been some really great Reanimate moments that I ended up just becoming a giant Necromancer guy and chasing people around for a little bit. I hope you really enjoy Necromancer. I'm a big fan now. I've always been a big fan, but especially now with this, it's allowed me to be rather creative with a lot of different things. I'm really enjoying the restoration staff. I'm actually enjoying the battleground meta with this. I'm not seeing as many procs. Sure, they're procs, but everything seems to be in line for now. I haven't encountered anybody like me. I have not encountered a really super high resistance build. I've seen mostly glass slits. You can see I'm hitting people with over 6k per Blastbone, meaning they can't have the most highest of resistance. Maybe if I face a build like this, I wouldn't do anything, especially with Spectre's Eye probably affecting Blastbone. In the mirror match, you'd probably do nothing. But, however it works, it makes it work. I like using that examples like that where the Reanimate Blastbones may not have killed my opponent, but it definitely got him low enough to either have someone else finish him or make him run really far away. Which is effective in non-death match, not so much in death matches. It is, as you can see here, but overall, it's a really good ultimate, and you're going to see a lot more people using it overall. And if you stayed with the video this long, I really do appreciate it. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I hope you guys really enjoy the build. I hope you try Spectre's Eye if you have a Magicka build, or maybe a stamina build that uses Magicka on the back bar. It's going to be the new thing, I tell you. 20% mitigation, and with this, I'm only going, if I'm getting max resistance, it's 10% mitigation, which is the equivalent of major protection still, at least against AoEs, and there are lots of AoEs out there. Hope you really enjoyed it. Hope you have a great rest of your day, night, or evening, or whatever. Hope you see me again. Take it easy, everybody.